Hello, Steve White, Trek Way 89 for Steve Arts 89. Well, I just watched Star Trek Discovery Season 4, Episode 12, Species 10C. I actually liked this episode. I was actually engaged. It wasn't perfect. There were some problems, of course. And there's still the overall sort of problems with Discovery and the Federation in that time zone and all those sort of issues. But the actual episode itself and the season itself has been fairly solid. This episode was all about establishing first contact with Species 10C and working out how to communicate with them. And what I really appreciated about it was that it was a mystery. It was trying to resolve an issue, trying to solve a problem, as opposed to war and fighting and drama and villains and so forth. It worked fairly well. Now, the episode starts off with the Discovery sitting outside the hyperfield, which is huge. They're trying to communicate, nothing's happening. So they decide to send the dots out with the hydrocarbons, and that does get a reaction. All of a sudden, we're in the abyss, and we've got like a pseudopod, or whatever they were called from Alien, basically a water tentacle, comes out and absorbs or destroys the dots, and then it absorbs the Discovery. When the Discovery tries to get away at warp, it basically encompasses them, or whatever you call that, and pulls them into the hyperfield, and suddenly they are in the solar system that's inside the hyperfield, but they're in some sort of orb. It's like it's just blue light, so all you can see outside the bridge and outside the windows is just this sort of blue light. They're sort of trapped inside this solid sort of orb. Now, on the ship, we have a few dramas happening. We have Book and that are still trying to work out how to destroy the DMA. They've worked out if they can get the General to vent plasma from one of the warp nacelles, they can burn a hole in the sphere and escape. And then Taka actually located the power source, and he believes he can remove it. Unfortunately, what Jet Reno has discovered by reading his equations over his shoulder, basically from her little cell, is that if he pulls the power out of the DMA while it's running, it's basically going to implode, and that's going to destroy everyone and everything in the area. And there's going to be a spatial rift, which is going to take about 40 days before it destroys the Earth. So they're really not gaining much, just a bit of time. They'll have about 3 minutes to warp out, and for the 10C to escape as well. And then they've got about 40 days before the planets that would have been destroyed by the DMA are going to be destroyed by the rift anyway. So he really doesn't care about anyone. It's just incidental that he was going to save the universe. He really just cares about getting this power source and getting back to his partner. So he doesn't really care that the opposite is going to happen now. He's going to destroy everyone and everything, because he's just sort of telling himself, oh, maybe it won't happen. There's no proof it will happen. Maybe it won't implode. Okay, let's just take that risk, just for ourselves. So Jet manages to communicate this to Book. She basically grabs him and says, this guy's going to kill us all. You have to stop him. And Book realizes she's right, and he does try to stop him. But he has some sort of shield up, and he basically, any attacks that Book makes on him basically ends up coming back at him, and he ends up pretty much a mess. And he just drags him into the little hostage area, the little cell they've created with the force field, and leaves him there. And he's planning to go in, get out of the orb and go into further into the hyperfield solar system and destroy the DMA. So that's sort of poised to happen. Now, on the ship, they've actually discovered that Jet is missing. Zora felt something was wrong, and through talking to Dr. Culber, eventually worked out that they were tricking her into not seeing the ship, and that Jet was still on the ship. They had a communicator that was sending signals to suggest that her vital signs were there, like she was actually still attached to it and everything. And they worked out everything, but they worked it out about 10 seconds too late. And as they're just working out what the ship is doing and everything, the plasma is being sent out, and they very quickly escape the orb through the hole, and then it closes up, and unfortunately that didn't go down very well with the 10C. Now, in the meantime, I sort of trying to pick the smaller stories and get to the last story. So the last story of the communication, basically there's an alien that basically shows up outside the shuttle bay, and it is communicating with lights and the hydrocarbons, and they're trying to work it out. And they go down, they're looking at it, they're trying to work out what it's saying and trying to communicate. And what they realize is the hydrocarbons are being used in order, and that there's a light signals that are being sent, and the light signals tell them the order to put the hydrocarbons into it, basically form a language, or to make equations or sentences. So they've worked out how to talk through a maths-based language, which is being communicated through the order of the hydrocarbons, which is indicated by the light messages. So they found a way to communicate, and this does take most of the episode to work out, and it's kind of fascinating to watch and kind of interesting to see how they did this. They end up going on once they start talking to the species 10C, they send in like a little shuttle, which is like a little orb, and the captain and Saru and the president and a couple of us get on, and they go in and they find inside a reproduction of the Discovery, and that's been created for their comfort. And they continue talking because they solved a riddle basically to show that they could talk, that they were sentient, that they had language and they could communicate. So then they start to actually try and actually communicate some significant things, like letting them know what the orb, not what the orb, what the DMA is doing to them, because they don't appear to know. They sent them a replica of the explosive device that they sent in, because they apparently had no idea why they did that or what it meant or anything. So they realize that they don't understand what they're doing and the danger that they're posing to us. So they managed to communicate DMA plus us equals terror, and then they communicate back greater than sadness, as in great sadness, and then they're just poised to work out, okay, how do we communicate with them that the DMA has to be stopped? And basically they're communicating with us, they're willing to communicate with us, they have great power, they're not aware of the damage they're doing, they're not doing any harm to us, they're not ignoring harm they're doing, they're unaware of it. If we can make them aware of it, we should be able to reason with them, communicate with them, and resolve the problem. Now, in the meantime, Taka is still determined to destroy the power source, even if it destroys everything else. And it doesn't seem to have occurred to him that perhaps he could just ask them for the power source. I mean, he could just say, hey, can you power my device so I can go back to my partner? He's all about the fear of, I can't ask and I'm not going to get it, so I have to take it. And so he's stuck in that, and Book and Jet are stuck in the brig, and everyone else is stuck on the shuttle bay basically, because they've been sent back. Because once Booker's ship breached the orb and everything, their security was breached, so they basically halted communication. So that's where pretty much the episode ended. The episode ended with Jet communicating that he is basically going to destroy everything when he gets the power source, and we have a moment where, of course, Burnham realizes, of course, the only way to stop him is to destroy the ship, and if they do that, she's also going to have to kill Book. And I actually had like an emotional connection with that moment, and like, how's she going to do this? And also realizing that he would gladly sacrifice himself for that cause. That's what he's been doing the whole time. So it's going to be an interesting decision for her if they can't communicate properly with Species 10C and resolve things. If they can't get him to stand down and resolve things through contact and communication. So it's interesting. And overall, I liked the episode. Like I said, I felt like this is really what Star Trek should be about: solving problems, communicating, learning new species, new civilizations. Just that's the whole point of Star Trek, and this episode felt like Star Trek, and this season overall has felt more like Star Trek than the other seasons. They are improving. Like, instead of just another dramatic novel with chapters, this was actual episodes with an overarching story, and it felt more like Star Trek. So I have to comment on that. I have to acknowledge that I'm enjoying it more. I'm engaging with the characters more. I'm aside from the overall problems with how they're dealing with the Federation and some of the bigger themes in that in Star Trek and how they're not really true to Star Trek, the rest of the show, the individual episodes this season is actually been fairly good. I mean, there's been some stupid little things happening here and there, but besides that, I've been enjoying it. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I could say more, but I want to keep this to 10 minutes pretty much. I'm going to go. Thanks. Bye.